This is the 2.4 notes. You will be solving multi-step inequalities. Your objective today is that you will be able to solve and graph linear inequalities. So looking at this, I'm going to take one approach, and if that works, awesome. If not, we can definitely kind of change and adapt that. For some reason, my numbering got off right here, but we'll fix that as we go along. So number one, a is less than or equal to -4, and then in parentheses d plus 1. So whenever I first see this, I see this 8 and this 4, and I kind of want to get rid of this -4. Otherwise, I could distribute it out. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to divide everything by -4. And I'm first going to write everything out again. That way I kind of keep that original equation and just to check and make sure everything works out. So I'm going to divide everything by -4. And you'll remember, whenever we divide everything by a negative, we have to flip this sign. We have to switch this sign. So 8 divided by -4 is -2, which makes it greater than or equal to, and this turns into d plus 1. Now the next step that I need to do is I need to get d by itself. I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. -2 minus 1 is -3. It's greater than or equal to d. And again, just in case you're unsure of why we switch the sign here but not down here, because we divided by a negative or multiplied by a negative, that's when we flip the sign. When we merely subtract or add, we don't switch that sign. So now I have -3 is greater than or equal to d. And I like to have my variable on the other side, so I take note of which way this kind of arrow, quote unquote, is facing, and it's facing towards that d. So whenever I write it again, where the d is on the left side, I want to make sure that my arrow is pointing in the correct direction. -3. You definitely don't need to do this, but it is nice to kind of see. So up here in the middle, because we get to make our own graphs, I'm going to put the number that I'm starting with. So I'm going to start with -3, and then I'm going to go up a couple, so -2, -1, and go down a couple, -4, -5. Now the question is, how does this look? Well, I know that it's at 3, so I put a circle. And let me change that color again, sorry. Okay, there we go. Now it's going to actually look different. Okay. So I'm at -3, and this line underneath tells me that I need to fill it in. Now the next question is, which way does it go? D is less than -3. So what's the number that's less than -3? -4. So I'm going to go in that direction. Like I said, there is another way of doing this. The other way of doing this is to distribute this -4, and I'll do that just really quick over here, not really describing in detail too much besides the first part. So I distribute this -4 out, so I get 8 is less than or equal to -4d minus 4. I'm going to add 4 to both sides. So I get 12 is less than or equal to -4d. Divide both sides by -4. And I get -3 is greater than or equal to d. And if I flip the sign or flip the sides, make sure that my arrow is pointing towards the d when I do that. D is less than or equal to -3. Same answer, two kind of slightly different approaches, though you wind up doing the same thing in the end. Okay. All right. For the next one. So this is actually number 2 in your packet. Oh, I think I see what happens. Okay. So number 2, this one looks a little bit different because we have these n's on both sides of the equation. Whenever we do this, we're going to try and get it to one side. Like I've said before, I like to get it on the left, so I'm going to try and get it off the right. How do I get rid of this -4n? I'm going to write this out again. 2n is greater than 8 minus 4n. How do I get rid of that? Well, I'm going to add 4 n's to both sides. So I get 5 minus apologies, plus 2n is greater than 8. Now, this isn't by itself, following that kind of reverse operations that we need to do whenever we're solving. I need to subtract 5 from both sides. So I subtract 5, and I get 2n is greater than 3. I'm going to bring this down just a little bit more. There we go. Not quite done yet. We need to divide both sides by 2. I get n is greater than 3 halves. Now it's going to be really tempting right here for you to say, hey, you know what I want to do? I want to turn this into a decimal. You totally can. Me, I'm probably just going to leave it as is. We did this last time a little bit, and I showed you. I changed it. I just keep this as 3 halves, and I just follow it in halves. And so I say 2 halves is over here, and I say 1 half is over here. And I'd even probably do 0 over 2. And you can kind of see how it's pretty much 1, 2, 3, and then we go 4, and then we go 5, and just put it over and over 2. And that's totally fine. You get to kind of set your scale. So when I do this, when I'm graphing it, that color. 3 over 2 is where I'm at, so I'm going to put a circle. It's not equal to, so it's going to be left open. And then I have to determine the direction that we're going. N is greater than 3 over 2. So what's the number that's greater than 3? 4. So I'm going to go over towards 4 over 2. Okay. Let's see. There you go. All right. So the next one that we have is 6h minus 18 is less than 6h plus 1. This one's going to wind up being kind of cool. Oops. Oh, that's how you do that. Okay. There we go. All right. So let's go ahead and solve this. And the reason I kind of know this is going to turn out kind of cool is I kind of recognize a certain feature, but we're going to see what happens here. So whenever we do this, this is number 3, by the way. Again, I don't like having this 6h on the wrong side. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to write this out again. That's good, just good practice. H plus 1. I'm going to subtract 6h from both sides. What that leaves me with is 0 h's, so I'm not even going to write it. So I get negative 18 is less than 1. Now the question that you get to ask yourself is this a true statement? Is negative 18 less than 1? And hopefully your answer is yes, it is. This is a quote-unquote true statement. And what that means is whenever we look at that, we kind of think about it and we say, hey, is there any point in time when negative 18 is not less than 1? No, there isn't. So my answer here is all real numbers. Those are my solutions. All real numbers is an answer for us. And so maybe this is labeled 0, 1, 2. Just keep it simple on yourself. Negative 1, negative 2. And my arrow is actually going to go in both directions, and we're not going to have any points. Okay. So that's kind of one of the cool ones where it's not going to make it's kind of a nice one to be able to identify and say, hey, this is going to be a thing. All right. Okay, so the next one that we have is this one. This is going to be number, oops, let me change this back to green. This is number 4. So 7j minus 4j plus 6 is less than negative 2 plus 3j. So when I do this, I'm going to combine like terms, and then I'm going to start kind of moving things back and forth. So I go 7j minus 4j. 7j minus 4j is going to be 3j. And then I'm going to write the rest of it. Plus 6 is less than negative 2 plus 3j. As I said before, you can rewrite this down here. That step I feel like is so simple that I just kind of skipped that. Kind of up to you. Now, the next thing that I do is I say, okay, I don't like this j on this right-hand side, so I'm going to subtract 3 j's from both sides. So minus 3j minus 3j. 3 minus 3 is 0, so I'm just going to write down the 6. 6 is less than negative 2. Now, that statement that I said, 6 is less than negative 2, is that a true statement? Well, ultimately, that answer is false. It's not a true statement. That isn't true. 6 is not less than negative 2. And if you struggle with your negatives, it's totally fine for you to do this. If you had this, you say, man, I'm just not sure. How do I get rid of a minus 2? I add 2 to both sides. And you get 8 is less than 0. Is 8 less than 0? Well, no, it's not. It's never less than 0. And so what we do is we write this as no solution. And we don't graph anything. We leave the graph blank and we have no solution. And it might be a good time to just kind of circle it just so you can see it. ARN, by the way, is all real numbers. And that finishes the notes. Make sure you check on your assignment and get it done. Have a good one.